While it's typically common for goaltenders to start out as skaters first throughout development, it's definitely not so much the other way around. But for these select few on this list, prior to their days playing D, these NHL players actually man the crease first and foremost. In this video, I'm going to go over a few NHL players that, believe it or not, began their hockey careers between the pipes. And with that, here are 3 NHL defensemen that started out as goalies. While it may be hard to imagine former Norris recipient Erik Karlsson starting out in the blue paint, the defenseman revealed during his time as a Senator that he actually began his hockey career as a netminder. The previous position came to light following number 65's social media post captioned, "My first professional photo ever as a hockey player." Karlsson, who reportedly was 6 years old in the photo, recalls a fascination with goaltending due to equipment, saying, "I thought it was cool to have all the gear on," he says. "Everybody could be a goaltender, and we switched around. The first team photo I was ever in, I was a goaltender. I'm happy that I didn't go that route, but I'm also happy that I got the chance to try it out. It's a lot of fun when you're a young kid and people don't shoot that hard," he says. But thankfully, for Karlsson's future career, his father Jonas, who also played elite hockey in Sweden, took it upon himself to persuade his son to ditch the pads and instead follow in his footsteps. After taking a hard slapper from his old man, the defenseman indicates that from there, his outlook on goaltending changed completely. "That's one of the reasons why I'm still not in net and probably never will be," Erik says. Regardless though, I think we can all agree that the switch benefited the Swede after all. Growing up in the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts, hockey wasn't just a hobby for Keith and the Yandle family, but instead a lifestyle. As, along with his older brother Brian and younger sister, Keith was immersed in the game almost as soon as he could walk. "I probably started skating around 3 or 4, at least standing on skates," Keith says. "My older brother always played, and it was one of those things. When your older brother is doing something, you always want to do it. I probably started skating on a team when I was 6, he says. And during an interview on his brother's hockey podcast titled The Rink, Keith further entails how his hockey beginning commenced by saying, "I loved playing goalie. It was pretty good. I was probably better at goalie, but when we got older, it was expensive, and I was getting hand-me-downs on pads. But when you got to the age where it was kind of like you're going to have to start buying your own stuff, I had to shut it down. But I definitely enjoyed playing goalie," he says. Keith, during the interview, indicated during his days playing long before Cushing Academy, it was typical for him to split playing time in the crease and in front of the cage on game days. But for Keith, the decision to hang up the pads was a good one. "Glad I didn't stick with goalie," he says. "Cause goalies are crazy, and you've gotta be crazy to take shots that guys are taking nowadays," he says. Nonetheless, for Keith, the Iron Man Yandle, the shots still have managed to do some damage, at least as far as his chiclets are concerned. And yes, spittin' chiclets, pun intended. Not a big deal. Hedman, who grew up in the same small Swedish town as the Sedins and Peter Forsberg and Ovik, was the youngest of 3, with 2 older brothers, Oscar and Johan. Hedman describes himself as an awkward kid growing up, as he was usually towering over his peers, which may be why initially that Hedman didn't begin on the blue line, but rather between the pipes. But his father, Oli, recalls Victor wasn't always the smoothest skater, at least at the start. "He skated like a moose," he says. "He had to develop the muscles for skating." And according to an article from Sports Illustrated, it was his parents that convinced him to vacate the crease, or should I say bribed? Well, sort of. As the story goes, Victor found a way to negotiate with his mother Elizabeth. The deal Hedman concocted was that he would trade in his pads if there would be a new helmet under the tree. And obviously, come Christmas time, there was. But after granting his parents' wishes, Victor claims the adjustment wasn't easy at first. "I don't think I was that skilled when I was younger," he says. "I had some trouble growing into my body. My coordination wasn't the best. I had some tougher years," he says. Regardless, as we all know, the defenseman definitely overcame the initial growing pains as he's blossomed into one of the best on the blue line currently in the game.